Welcome. Welcome to this community event that we're hosting here at Longfellow Middle School for the, broader community. My name is Tony Thompson, and I serve the district as Chief of Staff, and I'm going to have the opportunity to facilitate this conversation, with you this evening. But before we start, I have a couple of individuals that, I'm going to introduce, and they're going to just share a few comments before we get into the rest of the program. So first of all, I would like to introduce State Representative Trey Martinez-Fisher, who was first elected to the House of Representatives in 2000. He represents House District 116, which includes 16 of the SAISD campuses, to include Longfellow and many of the others in this broader community. He's a senior member of the Dean of the Bexar County Delegation and previously chaired the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus from 2009 to 2016. He's a strong supporter of public schools, and he currently serves as a senior member of the Budget Writing House Appropriations Committee and a member of the Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee. So would you please help me welcome Representative Trey Martinez-Fisher.
Talk about being on the spot. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. How are you? I'm Trey Martinez-Fisher, as was mentioned. I've been very lucky, fortunate to be a voice for many families in Austin for a long time, and Longfellow is a place I know very, very well. It's good to be with the Spartan community. I know that we have a lot of Spartans here tonight, but from when I look around the room, I see folks from all across the community. And I think that to me, when I was thinking about just saying hello and thanking you for being here, because there are 1,000 demands on your time. I have a 9th grader, I have a 7th grader, I have a wife that we now talk by text messaging because there's just so much going on in her professional life, my professional life. But I think it's important to be here. I've been through processes where we didn't have a voice, we didn't have an opportunity to convene, and we sort of read in the news that decisions were being made on our behalf. And I remember how I felt as a brand new lawmaker when we had a process like that. And so I've been following this in the news. Full disclosure, Mayor Garza, Ed Garza, Trustee Garza, we've been in each other's weddings, we're friends. I keep in touch with him as to what's happening. I know that there's a process, I know there's a conversation, I know there's a dialogue, and we need to have that with meaningful input. So this is the time to put it all on the table. That's what I've been doing when I see something. You see something, you say something, and I'm happy that this is actually taking place. So Dr. Aquino, trustees, SAISD leadership, thank you for that. Our community deserves to be heard. And more importantly, the hard work is going to begin. So this may be the last convening as a community, but I hope that we see all these voices and faces. My office hopes to be engaged. I hope to be part of the dialogue, because this San Antonio ISD is a treasure for San Antonio. We're one of the largest school districts in the largest cities in this state. I'm wrestling a whole different, arena of animals in Austin about people who want to make decisions about the future of public education that don't really care too much about public education. And so I have my hands full watching that, and I appreciate your prayers and support. Appreciate you being in that fight with me, but I also have to look here and say, well, what we do have with public education, we need to embrace it, we need to cherish it, we need to hold on to this district, not just for the graduating class right now, but for the next 50 years. And that's what this mission is. So thank you for being here, and thank you for speaking up. And for those of you that sort of got in the car and said, I don't know if I'm going to make it to this meeting, just another meeting. What does it matter? It matters. It matters a lot. And so thank you for being here. As you know, my office is just down the street at Babcock and 410, and we try to stay very, very engaged. Kathleen Vale is the district director. She's here with me. Many of you know her. Plug me in how I can help. Just tap me in. Let me be part of this conversation. Tony, let me give the program back to you. Thank you for being here, and let's have a wonderful dialogue.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your investment, in public schools and particularly in SAISD. It's now my privilege to introduce someone that really needs no introduction. Ed Garza, who serves as trustee for SAISD Board of Trustees, District 7, has certainly a long history, in the school district. He's an independent consultant that specializes in urban planning, public policy, real estate development, and investment. If I had to use a couple of words to describe him, I'd say that he's not only a visionary, but a strategic planner. He's always focused on the big picture in terms of the needs of communities and how to strategically approach taking care of those needs. He has served on various corporate and governing boards, and he has certainly invested a lot of his time in local and global planning. He served 8 years as a municipal elected official, and 4 of those years he served as the youngest mayor of San Antonio, at the time, at the young age of 32. And he served his 2 terms and then again 2 additional terms as an actual city councilman. Trustee Garza was elected to our school board in 2009, and he's been reelected several times. He also served the district as president of the board for a period of time, and his current term expires in 2025. If you would, please help me welcome Ed Garza. And by the way, a graduate of Jefferson High School, totally invested in this community.
Well, good evening. It's good to be introduced by a fellow graduate of Jefferson High School, Ms. Toni Thompson. Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge our state representative, Trey Martinez-Fisher, for not only his focus and commitment to public education, but for being here tonight in his backyard to hear and listen to not only the presentation that our staff has worked hard in putting together to tell a story, but also to get your feedback and to get your wisdom as well. And I also see a former trustee, Carlos Villarreal. Where is he? There he is. I saw him when I was driving in, and it brought back some memories. Back in 2008, I think is the first time I came across Mr. Villarreal as a trustee, and I was attending a meeting with Representative Fisher Martinez and with Ana Alicia and some others that are here at Horseman Middle School during that whole discussion of consolidating and closing schools. And there were many public hearings that were being held. At that particular meeting, it was about moving the students of then Horseman Middle School, this again, 2008, to Longfellow, that Longfellow would take these students, consolidate 2 middle schools into one so that we could open the Young Women's Leadership Academy. And I really stand and take time to reflect that moment because it was a challenging time. It was a challenging time for those students and families to have to move middle schools. It was a challenging time for Longfellow. They didn't have this beautiful cafeteria that we're sitting in today. How many remember the old cafeteria down there that Longfellow used to have, and the older entrance here that Longfellow used to have? And so they had to put in 1,200 students here at Longfellow. And it was a challenging time. And it wasn't just Horseman. Travis Elementary became Travis Early College High School, and we had other stories that were told. And as I stand here today, and part of this will be presented to you, there were projections at that time that said, if we don't make these changes now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trustee Villarreal, if they didn't make those changes now at that time, there was going to be some very big challenges for the district financially, as well as offering programs for future students. And they made projections of what the enrollment would be through today. And as our superintendent will articulate, we are living in the worst case scenario from what was projected in 2008 in terms of enrollment. This is the worst case scenario. 15 years later, our enrollment did not go up. In fact, it's gone down significantly. And every school has a unique story. Every school in our neighborhood has a rich history. And every school in our neighborhood has competition. And every school in our neighborhood has housing that in most cases cannot be afforded for families. Or it's not big enough. They don't have enough bedrooms for families. So they opt out to move far out by 1604. How many of you have friends that live out now, 1604? Culebra Park and Alamo Ranch, and they're building houses like it's nothing. And so the demographics have changed, yes, but our neighborhoods have not been able to keep up with what families want in housing. So you put all of that together, and even here at Longfellow, this is a unique story. We are in the second bond phase program, building this school for 1,200 students. Today, this school has 616 students. I check attendance of our schools and membership of our schools every day. After second period, I go on my computer and I look, how are we doing today in attendance and membership? Because it's that important. But think about that. This was a school that was consolidated with 2 schools and had 1,200 students in 2015, even as recently as 2015, 1,200 students. This school was bigger than 2 of our comprehensive high schools, to put it in perspective. Today, it's half of that size, And when we look at the projections of the schools that feed Longfellow, I know where's head of school Nancy Rodriguez? She does an excellent job here. Head of School Rodriguez, just wave. Thank you for hosting us. They try hard. They go to the elementary schools, but the numbers keep going down. The numbers keep dwindling. So this is a very real conversation that we have to have. And as I've said before, I know we all care about individual schools. My wife teaches in the school district, 3 blocks from where she grew up. And it's a personal issue for all of us. But if you put away the neighborhood school or the school that we're associated with for a moment, I would ask you to keep in mind that the discussion tonight is about the survival of the San Antonio Independent School District for public education. We need our schools to provide the most resources, the best facilities, the best academic programs, and most importantly, teachers and staff that are supported, that have the resources and are compensated for the time that they put in. That is what we envision. That's what we've heard at the public meetings we've hosted. That's what Always Learning is all about. And so tonight, thank you for joining us here for this important conversation. Please keep an open mind and think about that concept of survival for not only the district, but future generations. With that, I'd like to introduce our superintendent, Dr. Aquino, to come up, and he will walk us through the presentation. Dr. Aquino has been all over the place. He has, even before the Rightsizing discussion began, he was visiting every campus, having meetings with the faculty and staff at every campus. I had never seen that done in the first year. He was busy. He was very busy because he was listening to the schools and the students within our district. That's why we're here today. So Dr. Aquino, thank you for your leadership and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Garza. Buenas tardes, familia. Come on, you can do better than that. Buenas tardes, familia. Siempre bilingüe, so let's do it in Spanish and English too. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. First, I want to acknowledge Representative Trey Martinez-Fisher for being here to listen, to being our partner in this amazing but difficult journey. And not only that, but Representative Martinez actually reached out to my office, and we had a meeting where we were able to brief him not only on the rationale of why we're having this conversation, but we also talk about how we can be partners in lifting our joint voices to our elected officials in Austin to do the right thing for public education here in the state of Texas. So thank you for being a partner with us. Thank you to many of you for being here. I see some of you have been to many. This is 14 meeting. This is our last one of this round. We're going to have another one beginning next week. But I see Trustee Villarreal has been like 4 or 5. I see the Baskin Beagles are here. I think they have been to 3 or 4 of these sessions. So thank you very much for being here. Tonight, we are talking about our commitment to every child, no matter where that child is a student within our district. We need you to know that we are committed to embracing, engaging, empowering, and educating your children as if they were our own, so that they have the power to realize, they have the ability to realize their power to shape their world and make it a better place. We, as a familia, are firmly committed to delivering on the promise of high-quality education for every single child, which is outlined in our strategic management plan, one that we call Always Learning. We call it Always Learning because, like our children, the district needs to be evolving to better serve our student. And though we say that it is a strategic management plan, one of our high school students, I have a superintendent student advisory council, and when we were getting their feedback on the Always Learning on our plan, he said, Dr. Aquino, don't call it a plan. This is not a plan. It is a document of promises. Very profound from one of our students. And he's absolutely right. Our Always Learning is a document of promises that we make to you as a family, to our students, that if you spend 12 or 13 years of your life attending SAISD, we better need to guarantee that you can pursue a life without boundaries. And that's why we are here tonight. We want to do better by your children, our children, by ensuring that each student has access to the similar extraordinary educational experience and extraordinary extracurricular offerings, no matter the school that their family chooses for them within the boundary of SAISD. But to be honest, we are not satisfied with the current situation in which we find ourselves, in which smaller schools face challenges in providing all the necessary resources for their students. And at the same time, we're also not satisfied with the fact that larger schools also lack the necessary resources to adequately support their students, because we have to reallocate some of their resources to keep some of our small schools open. But let me be clear, I am not saying that this is an issue that's caused by the small school or even the large school. We are at a crossroad. It is a systemic issue. And like Trustee Garza said, this is about the survival of SAISD. And we cannot count on Austin and our legislative to take care of our kids and our family. If we needed evidence of that, this last legislative session, with a historic budget surplus, we didn't get an increase in funding. So shame on our officials for doing that. So we need to take care of our familia, and that's why we are here. So we're willing as a familia to take the tougher path to ensure your children, our children, get the best education possible for a brighter future. I stand in front of you as an immigrant who came to this country as an adult, as a second language learner who's still trying to learn English, and here I stand as the teacher of teachers of the San Antonio Independent School District. Who would have thought that someone like me from a developing country would have been able to land this role? So as you can see, I'm living the American dream. I truly am. But I also have a dream that one day in the city of San Antonio, in the state of Texas, and why not in this great country of ours, all kids, not just one, not some, not most, but all kids will be afforded the opportunity that has been given to me to pursue the American dream. And that's why we're here, and we're willing to stand up, even though it's not an easy conversation. We understand that many of you have questions, concern, and anxiety about this study and what it can mean to you as a parent, to you as a student, to you as a staff member. We want to be honest with you that the result of this study will lead us to recommend to our Board of Trustees some changes, which include combining schools or closing schools for the 24-25 school year. But here's the important part. We are committed to making this process and this study a transparent one, as you heard Representative Martinez Fisher, and a two-way process. We are here to listen to your suggestion, to your concern, to your challenges, and to your pushback. And we will keep you informed throughout the process, and we will listen to you as well. Your input matters, and we're grateful that you are here with us tonight. You will have a voice and will continue to have a voice. This is not the last community meeting. It's the last community meeting about this round where you're giving us feedback on the criteria. Beginning next week, we are going to have another rounds of a lot of meetings for those that might be impacted schools, so that you can give us your feedback before we do the final recommendation in November. So today, we want you to focus on giving us your best thoughts on the criteria that we're going to use to look at each campus. We know that these decisions are complex and are not easy to make. Nobody wants to close school. I know our representative would not like for us to close school. Our board would not. Personally, I don't want to close school, and I never thought that 15 months into my tenure in this row, I would have to be having this conversation with our community. But we're talking about doing what's right for a kid and the survival of the district, as Trustee Garza said. We know that every campus and community has its own unique factors. That's why we went to each single member district twice in this round, so that we can hear your hopes, your fears, your dreams and aspirations for your kids and for our schools and for the city of San Antonio. There's one important value that we in the district believe and want to share with you today, and that is our strong conviction that resources should be distributed fairly to support all students. We also share a strong belief that those members of our familia who are the most disadvantaged and vulnerable are the ones that require more love, more support, and more resource than those that find themselves in a much more advantageous position. That, in my opinion, is what we call a fair and just society, and that's what we're trying to do here. It is important to know that the Rightsizing study could begin to reverse years of systemic growing inequity, where some students and family benefit from better academic programs, better buildings, and greater access to extracurricular activity compared to others. Once again, thank you for being here. Together, we're going to build a stronger and better plan that will enhance the education that your children, our children, will receive and make our schools an even better places for our committed and dedicated staff. So thank you. Now, I want to call back our Chief of Staff, who's going to facilitate the conversation in the next hour and a half. And Tony Thompson doesn't need any introduction. She, like Mayor Garza, is a legend in the community, having gone to most of her schooling within SAISD, and after dedicating her entire professional career, over 40 years, serving the SAISD familia. And if there's someone who cares about our schools and protect them, that's Tony Thompson.
Thank you. As Superintendent Aquino pointed out, I've lived in the district boundaries my entire life, went to schools in the district, have worked for the district since 1980, and You know, for all of those reasons, I'm deeply invested and committed and certainly even protective of SAISD, especially when it comes to our students, our families, and our staff. So it's really a privilege to be able to facilitate this conversation with you this evening because it's such an important one. So over the next couple of hours, we're going to engage in a long, rich conversation and discussion with you about the future of SAISD and about our ability to commit to the promises and the commitments that we've made to ensure that every student in every corner of the school district has a quality and rich education. Before I do that, though, I want to direct your attention to a small card that kind of serves as a centerpiece on your tables with the definition of thriving. And by definition, thrive means to grow, to develop, to prosper, or to flourish well or vigorously. And we point that out to you because you're going to hear us talk about thriving schools repeatedly this evening. You're going to spend some time looking at thriving profiles that have been developed so that we can get your feedback about that. So the superintendent mentioned that he mentioned our strategic management plan, which is called Always Learning. And it was a plan that was created with unprecedented input, you know, from the community because we had over 6,000 individuals who responded, which we were really excited about. And as a result of that, we decided to start this long conversation with the community about what a thriving or a successful school would look like. So we convened a committee of 50 diverse members, which included individuals from all of these roles: students, teachers, classroom leaders, school leaders, central office staff, and other district staff, so that they could help us create a vision for thriving schools, thriving students, and the thriving school district. We also went back to the community to ask them, if you had $100 to spend on a thriving campus, what would you prioritize as being most important? And we had about 2,000 respondents, 52% of them were students, and these are the top 10 things that they said they wanted to see in a thriving school. The first one shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. They wanted all schools to be welcoming and safe. And in today's time, safety is one of the most important things that we think about, that you think about as parents, that students think about, and that we think about as well. They also indicated that it was important to offer extra support for struggling and advanced students. We've always provided hurdle help, you know, for struggling students. It's just as important to provide additional support for advanced students so that they can continue to reach higher levels of performance. They also talked about the importance of providing student well-being and mental health resources. Superintendent Aquino mentioned to you that he has a student advisory committee that he meets with every month. Last year, the theme for all of the meetings was the need to have more mental health resources available to them. This has been very common since the pandemic. You know, students make outcries all the time about the need for additional mental health resources and support. They also talked about preparing students to be at or above grade level, and at grade level should be the baseline. We certainly have no intentions of not preparing students to be at least at grade level. They wanted to make sure that all students with disabilities have the needed support and resources, and to help students become independent leaders and thinkers, and then to have up-to-date technology and instructional materials. The district has invested a lot over the last several years in technology. We need to continue to invest in technology so that not only students but staff always have up-to-date state-of-the-art technology. They talked about the importance of embracing family and community. And it's for that reason that we're engaging in 14 community events during this first round, because having your input, making sure that you understand, you know, what we're proposing and having an opportunity to get input from you is vitally important. They also talked about offering a wide range of extracurricular events and activities, and all school communities have a strong interest in making sure that there are lots of extracurricular opportunities and offerings for students. You know, whether it's fine arts, whether it's, LOTC, Longfellow has always had one of the best, one of the premier LOTC programs, whether it's athletics, or anything else. Those things help students stay in school, engage, and perform better because it's important to them. And we also know how that's also a community builder because it creates pride in the community and provides opportunities for students, families, and other community members to be involved. And then last but not least, it's important to have up-to-date furniture and equipment. We want all of our schools to look like Longfellow. Longfellow looked like this, after the bond work, and we want every school to have state-of-the-art facilities like Longfellow. So later, you're going to be able to give us feedback about the thriving profiles, and your feedback's vitally important to this process. And in a few minutes, I'll give you some instructions about how you'll be able to do that. Our profiles cause us in our current reality to reflect on whether or not we're able to deliver on the promises that we've made to develop and maintain and sustain thriving schools. And the reflection drove us to look at data, and we concluded that we're at a crossroads right now. And either we engage in this hard conversation, which is certainly never one that we want to have to engage in, or we continue to experience the inequities that we know exist. So as stewards of your children, we are compelled to ask, can we live with a system where we offer more resources to some students in some communities and not offer the same resources to all students in every community? So whether you've spent your entire lives residing in SAISD like I have, or whether you're fairly new to the community, you're probably wondering, so how did we get here? So we have a couple of great graphic illustrations that will capture information that's really important to share. Our data tells us that we've been losing enrollment steadily for more than 20 years, and we have not closed schools at the rate of the enrollment decline. We've been reluctant to close schools, and you've heard that mentioned by Superintendent Aquino and Trustee Garza and Representative Martinez-Fisher. No one likes to close schools. This is not something that's pleasing to anyone, but we just want you to have some context so that you know how we ended up being where we are now relative to where we might have been several years ago. So I'll give you one example. Jefferson, I graduated from Jefferson back in the class of a long time ago, and Jefferson was bursting at the seams. My sophomore class had 1,300 students in it, 1,300 students in the sophomore class alone. That's more than 2 of our comprehensive high schools right now for 4 grades. When I was at Jefferson, there were 3 grades. So that tells you that things have changed significantly over time. In addition to that, I want you to kind of look at some data that compares our data in terms of the number of campuses that serve students and our enrollment with the other districts, the other largest districts in Bexar County. We're the 3rd largest, but I'm going to start with Judson. Judson is the 4th largest. They have 32 campuses that serve over 24,000 students. Northeast has 75 campuses that serve 59,000 students. Northside has 124 campuses that serve 102,000 students. San Antonio ISD has 98 campuses that serve 44,000 students. You see what a stark difference it is. And again, how has that happened? It just has happened over time. And although we set out 15 years ago to begin this process, we have not been able to keep up with the declining enrollment. And I'm going to share with you what's led us to that decline. So back in 2010, we were serving 48,600 students. In 2014, the district really set out to engage in innovation. And innovation is part of what's created Longfellow as an IB school. It was that innovation that transformed 35 of our schools, 32 of which were associated with 1882 partnerships. And we're proud of that. We're happy about that. In 2021, we had 2,000 students from outside SAISD boundaries that were attending SAISD schools. And we attribute that in large part to the innovation. In 2022, SAISD had more students attending our schools from out of SAISD boundaries than any other school district in Bexar County. And we have 16 districts in Bexar County. I was even surprised because I thought, well, Northeast probably has more that are drawing from outside the boundaries, or North Side, but no, SAISD has drawn more students from other school districts than any other district in the county. So that's a good thing. Despite that, though, we still are in the worst case scenario that the demographer predicted 15 years ago. So you're probably wondering, so what's led to this? What's contributed to this decline? Where are the children going? There are two primary things that have contributed to the decline. The first is the declining birth rate. And that's not limited to SAISD. It has particularly hit us, though, in SAISD because we are the urban core. So there are not as many children being born to families. Instead of having maybe 4, 5 children, they may be having 1 or 2 children. And that's impacted us tremendously. The under 18 population has declined 14% since 2010. The birth rates have declined 36% since 2007 in the SAISD zip codes. So that's huge. That has a huge impact. The second major reason for the decline is the lack of affordable housing. So many times when families are looking to purchase homes, they end up looking outside the boundaries because the housing is not necessarily as affordable within the urban core as it would be in the outlying school districts. So those are the two primary reasons. Only about 20% of our students have left the district to attend charters or schools in other school districts. So only 20% of the decline is attributed to the fact that students have left to go to charter schools or to other school districts. So, based on that, you're probably wondering what does all of this mean? It means that our resources are spread too thinly, and if we're going to make sure that we're providing equitable resources and services to all students in every community, then we have to look at making some very difficult decisions. So when you look at this graphic, it basically illustrates what can happen when schools are very small. When you have very small schools, they're more expensive to operate, yet they have less that they're able to provide the students and the staff. So I'm just going to illustrate a couple of the examples and ask you to think for a minute, imagine for a minute that we have a very small elementary campus in our school district. And maybe there are 9 first graders on that campus, and there are 11 second graders, and that's all. In those cases, we're creating split classes. So now we have 20 students in a combined first, second grade split. That's a challenge for a teacher because you're having to master 2 different curricula, and it's just not as easy as it would be if you're focused on your first grade curriculum or you're focused on your second grade curriculum. Another thing that can happen is that, when we have small, especially elementary campuses, but not just elementary campuses, if you have only 1 4th grade teacher, only 1 5th grade teacher, or if you're an academy and you have just 1 6th grade math teacher, you don't have other teachers teaching the same curriculum to collaborate with. You're pretty much, on your own. And we know that our teachers do a great job of teaming and collaborating. It's just important for teachers to also have those thought partners and that support, when they're planning. And then there are other reasons as well to include fewer curriculum offerings. But those are some of the things that we end up experiencing with very small campuses. The cost per student at our smallest elementary campus is 2 times higher than it would be at our largest elementary. And the trend runs through the other configurations as well. The smallest academy is going to cost 1.9 times higher than it would at the largest academy. And at the middle school level, it's 1.4 times higher, smallest versus largest. And at the high school level, it's 1.8 times higher, smallest versus largest. So you can see again that it's much more expensive to operate small schools, and they don't have the same resources that are available to campuses and students on larger campuses. So this isn't a new story. As you heard earlier, we closed 6 schools in 2008 and 3 more in 2009. Very difficult journey, a necessary journey at the time. And this graphic from 2008 was really kind of laying out the story, for the school district, through 2020. And as Superintendent Aquino pointed out, we're living the worst case scenario right now. And even worse than the worst case scenario, because we have 3,000 fewer students than they expected that we would have in 2020. So 15 years later, we're gonna offer this illustration through a video that will help compare what the small schools don't have versus what a larger school probably has or could have. So please watch the video.
This is a tale of 2 schools. Our first school, Mountain Elementary, is fully enrolled and nearly every seat is filled. Like all schools, Mountain receives money based on the number of students, as well as their needs, such as whether they are English learners or they receive special education support. Since Mountain is fully enrolled, it has a full staff and offers a wide range of programs. That's why they can afford a full-time music teacher who provides after-school opportunities for students and who organizes performances for parents throughout the school year. Mountain has more than 1 teacher for each grade level and subject, so students benefit from teachers that can plan together. If a student and teacher pairing is not working well, parents can ask to move their kids to another class. At Mountain, when a student with special needs requires extra support, the services are provided right at the school by a full-time specialist. And when a student is in crisis, there's a full-time mental health professional on campus who can speak with the student on the same day, usually within minutes. Mountain enrollment allows the principal to decide whether to hire an instructional coach to support teachers, an intervention teacher to help kids who need to catch up on reading or math, a full-time librarian, or a family and community engagement specialist to work with families. Because Mountain is fully funded, the school can afford to send teachers to summer training to learn new strategies and share ideas with teachers from across Texas. Now let's take a look at our second school, Ocean Elementary. Ocean is under-enrolled. This means that their building has lots of extra space and empty seats. Because they have fewer students, they generate less state funding than Mountain Elementary, and they cannot fully staff their school or offer a wide range of programs with the money they get. To help Ocean, the district must take some money from Mountain and other schools so Ocean can provide necessary services. Since Ocean cannot afford a full-time music teacher, they hire one part-time. This means the teacher is not always available to provide after-school opportunities for students or organize performances for parents throughout the school year. Because Ocean does not have more than 1 teacher at a grade level in each subject, the teacher must plan alone. If a student-teacher pairing is not working well, parents cannot move their kids to another class and must take their child to another school. At Ocean, when a student is in crisis, there may not be anyone on campus who can assist immediately. It could take hours or days to connect the student with help from a mental health professional. At Ocean, when a teacher or student struggles, support must be provided by the principal or assistant principal. They may not be able to afford an instructional coach, intervention teacher, librarian, or family and community engagement specialist. Ocean does not offer all special education services, so a student who needs help may have to go to another school. The Ocean principal must carefully choose resources and training for teachers because the school has limited money. All our students deserve better, and this study will help us look at all of our schools and see if we are providing the high-quality education we promised in our Always Learning Strategic Management Plan. This will help us reach our district commitment to love, nurture, and teach all of our students as if they are our own, so that they realize their power to shape the world.
We want all of our schools to have resources like Mountain School. We want all children to have more equitable access to educational opportunities, and we believe Rightsizing can help with that. When done in the right way, Rightsizing can lead to better schools. By aligning the number of campuses and their capacity with the number of students that are served, we're able to make sure that schools get the resources that they need so that students can thrive. So to address our declining enrollment in excess buildings and inequitable experiences, the board called for a study in June and directed staff to develop a process that would allow us to create a framework that would help us evaluate our campuses with input from the community, and that's why we're here again this evening. So you can see that on June 20th, the board called for a resolution that directed staff to create a framework and to create this process, for communication and input. And on August 18th, we had our first of 14 meetings in this round. This is the last one for this round. And after this meeting, we'll finalize feedback, the input, and we'll explain what that's going to look like a little bit later, so that we can take some recommendations to the board on September 18th, and certainly communities invited. So we're going to have a board meeting on September 18th, and that's when we'll present information to the board. There won't be any vote taken. It'll be presenting information, and then after that, we'll start another round of community meetings so that we can, again, engage the community, provide information, get feedback, and we would take the final recommendation to the board on November 13th. When we take a recommendation to the board in November, it won't be a matter of, well, we support the package but not Ocean School. It'll be an all, or nothing. It's not at that point going to, cause there to be picking apart, of schools that are in the plan or part of the recommendation. After the board votes on November 13th, and assuming that we move forward with some closures, then there will be a couple of other real important things that will start to happen. The first will be that we will deploy transition teams. There's a transition team that's associated with the Office of Access and Enrollment, and they'll be the primary points of contact for the campuses and the parents and students to ensure that parents are getting their questions answered, to ensure that parents know what their options are in terms of choices for their children, and certainly to facilitate opportunities for students and parents, from a closing campus and a receiving campus to connect and to start to build, a bond and a connection and a relationship. There will also be a transition team from Human Capital Management that will be deployed to support staff. And they will meet with the members of staff assigned to the closing schools so that they can start to facilitate, options and experiences and opportunities for them as well. And then after that, or after the board vote, every campus will be visited at least 2 more times just to make sure, again, that resources are available, material is available, and that information is always available. So, again, we're here tonight to share a draft of the framework that guides our decision-making, and it has 3 components. And the first component is the values, the second is the primary criteria, and the third is the contextual criteria. So when we think about the values, we have 6 values that we've established, and again, you're gonna have an opportunity to provide some feedback about the values. The most important one, and the one that resonates with us the most, is about fostering thriving schools. That's what this is all about. It's not just about closing buildings, it's about fostering thriving and successful schools for students. The second is to support families and students. And again, that's why we're here now. That's why we'll continue to be, by the campuses sides and the community sides and the family sides throughout the process. The third is to stand by our staff, and we are committed to support our staff. You know, we don't want staff to be, you know, unnecessarily concerned about, you know, where they're going to be. There will be lots of opportunities for us to engage with them so that we can make sure that they remain part, you know, of the SAISD family. The fourth is to view all criteria through an equity lens. And equity essentially means fair and just. If you think about equitable and equal, they're two different terms. Equal means exactly the same. Equitable means substantially similar. So every decision we're making through this process is made through an equity lens. That's always at the forefront of the decision making. The next one is to reimagine buildings rather than abandon them. What we don't want to do is to close a school and leave an abandoned building in the community. No one likes that. I mean, we've gotten some great input, you know, from these community events about how buildings could be reimagined. And, you know, some of the examples could be things like opening a school for 0 to 3-year-olds. And it wouldn't mean that we're overseeing that campus, but it would be a community partner that would come in to run that campus. It could include senior citizen centers. It could include mental health centers. It could also include reimagining buildings to create some affordable housing for staff. So you probably have some other great ideas that we'd like to hear about, because again, our commitment is to not leave buildings abandoned. And then the last value is to update and upgrade remaining buildings and facilities. Let's pretend for a minute that Ocean is closing and that Ocean was scheduled to have some bond work done in a few years. Hadn't started yet. Well, the money from the students at Ocean would follow them if they're going to mountain school or if they're going to valley school to take care of any other kind of construction and upgrading that those campuses might need, or wherever the students would end up going. So again, we want all of our buildings to be state-of-the-art and to be, you know, state-of-the-art facilities along with programs. The second component is the primary criteria. And primary criteria really focuses on numbers. How many students are enrolled in the campus? How much of the facility is being utilized to support the campus? And then the facility cost per pupil. How much does it cost to educate a student on one campus as opposed to another campus? And then the third component is contextual criteria. And that's a set of indicators that will be used to make sure that we're identifying the best receiving schools for students, meeting the needs of families in schools, and then meeting short and long-term expectations of our board and our guardrails so that we can also meet the expectations associated with our thriving profiles. So we're at a point now that we're going to start this gallery walk, and I'm going to give you some instructions so that you'll understand where to go and how you would want to use your time during this gallery walk. And the first thing that I want you to do is to pick up a passport. You have a passport on your table. So pick up your passport and notice first what color sticker you have on your passport. So how many of you have an orange sticker on your passport? Okay. Well, when we dismiss in a few minutes, the first stop you're going to make, because we have 5 stations, and then we have a couple of other stations that I'll talk to you about, but the first stop those of you who have an orange sticker will make will be at the Rightsizing website, and it's all of them are out in the hallway. How many of you have the hot pink sticker? You would go to the Thriving Profiles station first to provide input. How about green? Green, you're going to look for the Values station. Blue is primary criteria, and purple's contextual criteria. So when we dismiss, you look for the station that aligns, the first station that aligns with your sticker, and we're going to give you about 30 minutes to make your rounds through all of the stations. So I ask that you kind of pace yourself, give yourself at least 5 minutes. If there's a station you want to stay at longer, it's okay, but we want you to try to get through all of the stations. Then we have a couple of other stations. One is a staff station. So if there's staff members here who want to talk to someone from the HCM transition team, they'll be able to talk to you. And we also have a family station. So if any family members want to talk to someone from the Office of Access and Enrollment about options for your children moving forward, then you can spend some time there as well. I have that it's 6:55, and because we have a large crowd, which we're excited about, we're going to come back at 7:30. I'm going to signal you, though, right before we come back, so that I'll signal you about 3 minutes before we come back so that you can be back here, because when we come back, we're going to spend some time in reflection. And Superintendent Aquino and Trustee Garza are going to spend their time over the next 35 minutes at an affinity station gathering feedback and input that you're going to share from some of the runners and the staff members that are here, so that they can then share reflections with you before we close tonight. So listen for this. When it's time to reconvene, I'll be in the hallway. It'll make you think you're at the Majestic or the Tobin. And then let's be back here at 7:30 so that we can wrap up for reflections and closure. All right, thank you very much. Okay. Well, thank you for coming back in. We're going to spend the next 15 minutes or so with reflections, and then we'll talk to you about next steps. And I'm going to ask Superintendent Aquino to come back up and to share reflections that are based on your feedback and input that you've provided.
Well, thank you again for amazing feedback that you gave us. There's tons of feedback in the back, and let me just talk to you about how we're addressing your feedback. Today, you gave us feedback, concerns, questions, suggestions, but we are not responding to them. These 14 meetings was for us to really listen to you and take your feedback and incorporate it into potential changes into the criteria. And I want to make sure that you understand, if you gave us some feedback, that doesn't mean it will make it to the changes. Why do I say that? Because we're looking for patterns. You might have a change that you want to see just for you, but nobody else wanted that change. So we're looking for patterns in terms of feedback. Even though we're not responding today, if you go to our website, you can actually see copies of these post-its, and there's a transcription. There's a PowerPoint deck for each community meeting that says, here are the patterns that we heard, and here are some direct quote, so you can see them. We are also updating our FAQ. So now let me read and share some of the feedback or question that you presented to us. But before that, I would like to recognize a member of this community who is a legend in this community, and that is Ms. Henrietta Lagrange. Thank you very much for being here. She's at our meeting. She's always reaching out to us. Thank you, Ms. Lagrange, for being here.
I want to thank everybody that's here, because I know how difficult it is. Believe me, all my children were educated in SAISD schools. I believe in SAISD schools. And if any of you see that it's not going the right direction, speak up, because that's what I do.
Wow. You know what she said? Como diría en mi país, y si no va, pau pau. ¿Verdad? Pau pau. Well, let me share some of the values that really resonated with you. One of the values that really resonated with you was this sense of equity, that equity is really important. And I'll read you one. They said, from a community member, if you're comparing MLK with Longfellow, it's comparing apples to oranges. Why? At MLK, these are the fine arts that are offered: band, dance, and art. However, at Longfellow, they offer band, dance, art, mariachi, choir, and orchestra. I want students to have the same program and opportunity at all campuses. Another value that resonated with you from a parent was standing by our staff. Said taking care of the staff is the most important value because they are the ones who take care of our children. The other value that resonated, like in most of the other community meeting, was to make sure that we do not abandon building. The quote was, we already have enough dilapidated buildings in our urban core. Let's not add to what is empty building. There was one thing, feedback about the profile. The profiles are great. How long would it take us to get there? Then there was a community member who was part of the committee who drafted the Thriving Profile, and she said, I'm a committee member and I am happy that the profiles are resonating well with people. I don't see a lot of red, so that's a good thing. One suggestion, in the contextual criteria, somebody wrote that we should consider, as part of the contextual criteria, more than one classroom per grade level. Then there was this feedback from a parent. The academy's concept seemed counter to the direction of the district is trying to head. The centralized middle schools allow for better teacher collaboration and provide full extracurricular activities, full middle school sports, and foster multi-sport athletes that the academy cannot do. From a parent from Baskin at Beagle, when I went to Baskin as a student, there were 4 to 5 teachers per grade level. Now we are combining and have split classes. What happened? If we just combine our schools, can we have multiple full classes in a grade level? A community partner, past president and grandparents said, we have some great schools like Steele, Threes, YMLA, and YWLA. Be careful not to destroy a good thing. Use the excellent model to help evaluate other campuses decide to close. A suggestion was to make sure, if not already, post the cost per student online. It's interesting to see the difference between school to area. And one that really resonated for me, given that I recently lost my father to Alzheimer's, said a community member using SAISD property to have a community for families who have someone with Alzheimer's to enhance the quality of life of people with Alzheimer's, placing them in the hands of trained staff. It could be a hub for training providers. From a parent, I love Baskin. I feel supported, comforted with my student who has disability. I left a charter school to come to a small school that feels like the one I have. I feel understood, I feel safe. Yeah. All schools should have equal resources, staffing, facility, counselor, librarian, extracurricular. The idea that some schools have these and others don't is just not right. A concern that we heard, maybe 3 or 4, public schools are an integral part of the community, and the people of the community should have some say in those discussions. And some of them were more specific, asking whether they should have a vote in the decision. A student, I guess probably from Longfellow, had what his vision of an ideal or thriving school is. Ideal school, the students wear Crocs. No assigned seating for 8th grade lunch. More teachers like Miss Bella, and please do not close my school. And finally, somebody said, impressed with the presentation and love having the community voice their opinion. Really good job. So let me end my remarks by first again thanking you for coming and sharing your honest feedback. We are truly listening to them, and we're going to make changes as a result of hearing your voices. And as I said earlier, nobody wants to close school. This is not something that is easy. Superintendents across the country get fired when they close school. Board trustees don't get re-elected. And though I'm the newcomer to this familia, I am committed to San Antonio ISD. I love this community. You have embraced me as part of your familia. And I don't want you to think that because I've only been here 15 months, it's like this newcomer's coming and now telling us that we have to close our school where my kids attend, I attended, and my mother attended. How dare this new superintendent do that? But I am committed. I love this to the point that now I'm a true San Antonian because I closed in a house several weeks ago. I haven't moved in because I'm doing some repairs, and it's actually in the single-member district of Trustee Garza. So this is going to be my community. Baskin would be, if I had elementary kids, Baskin would be my elementary school. So I want to say that because my family, my mom doesn't really understand. I have left New York City and lived in LA, Denver, and other places for 5 years, 6 years, and never bought a house. And she said, I don't understand how is it that in 15 months, you really already committed to staying. Oh yes, Mom, I'm retiring and I'm dying in San Antonio. That's how much I love it. So like, by what? It's like, because this is an incredible community and you have embraced me as a familia. And I'm happy to say that I've even convinced my mom and my sister to move in with me. So I will no longer be an empty nester. I will have my mom and my sister living with me, but I always like to say I'm just disappointed that my mom and my sister are not of childbearing age, because we can use every single kid so we can increase the enrollment. Again, I am committed. I am committed to doing what we believe is right, and we might not all agree at the end of the day with the recommendation, but please know that we're doing this because we have the best interest of your kids and your staff. So, and I know change is difficult. We understand that. But if we didn't have change, we would not have butterflies. So we are, with the Rightsizing, we're gonna have the ability to allow all our kids to soar and be able to become me or better than me. Thank you very much, and to share his reflection, I'm gonna call Trustee Garza to share some of his key takeaway from the feedback that you gave us.
Thank you. Well, I was going to introduce our legend resident, but he beat me to that. So thank you, Ms. LaGrange and others. I know Reverend Flowers was here from one of our local churches. I think there they are. Some of our congregation are here, but please let them know that it takes the entire community. It's not just residents, it's our community of faith. It's all of our powerful partners. And having our state rep here today, I think really indicates the level of involvement and engagement our community is fortunate to have. And I know that through this process, we're going to have to work through this together because it's going to be a difficult one. And many of the comments that I also noted, some of them were similar to what our superintendent articulated. The hopes, the dreams, the fears, the anxieties. As I stated, my wife has been a teacher for over 30 years in this district. She also teaches at a school that's 3 blocks from where she grew up. I live in a house that I bought before we were married that is 3 houses from where my father and where I grew up. And so we're very rooted in this community. My father is a graduate of Fox Tech. His father, a graduate of Main Avenue. My mother went to Brackenridge High School, and it's throughout SAISD, and as Tony Thompson said, we're very protective. But while being protective, because we have great stories, we have great neighborhoods, we have great facilities, but the most precious gift in our district are the students. That's the bottom line. And so every decision we will make will be for the benefit of students and their future, not only the students that we see in our schools today, but the students we cannot see that we are responsible for in the future, so that San Antonio Independent School District will be here as a public education system for all students for another 100 years. That is our commitment in this decision and the decision-making process. And I heard it from some of the comments here. One of the key observations, one of the quotes was even thinking, okay, if we close these facilities, what can we do with some of them? And one talked about a SAISD Performing Arts Center with multiple state-of-the-art spaces to highlight the work of our awesome students. Some of the feedback focusing on mental health was a common pattern, not making sure and committing that no one will lose their job. And that's also a big issue for many of our staff in our district. Living right by the small campus, or they're saying living right by their small campus makes them feel safe, and I think their superintendent picked up on that one as well. Choice is important, so please continue to give our families choices. Perhaps we can use some of the buildings for vocational training, or as they call it now, career technology, some of the new and emerging technologies that our districts are producing. Adding more kids, are you adding more support? So again, if you're consolidating, how are you going to ensure that the support is there at the schools that are receiving students? We still have a lot of questions and concerns specific to our child if there's a move. So again, as the transition team and as Tony Thompson alluded to, I was impressed when I saw the depth. Is there anyone here on the transition team, by the way? Please stand to be recognized. Or wave your hand. Mr. Reyna. Everybody knows Mr. Reyna here at Longfellow. But it's a group of individuals that have been working tirelessly, thinking about all the what-if scenarios, both, again, if they are receiving school or closing school, trying to make sure that everything has been thought of, but most importantly, that the personal connection and the personal outreach is there. And the final question that I wrote down or took a note of is, what is SAISD doing to combat students going out of the district going to out-of-district charters? Is it mostly a PR problem? And does this involve storytelling? Well, I was talking to one of the teachers at Baskin about this topic because Valor just opened a charter school down the street from Baskin. And the other day I was driving by there, I saw the line of cars picking up kids from kinder through 8th grade. And they have a very aggressive PR campaign. They're one school. How many schools of Valor are in San Antonio right now? But they're marketing to the entire region of San Antonio. One school, one marketing budget, one simple message. How many schools do we have? Campuses, 98. So think about, from a marketing strategy, how do we become competitive against schools that are so specialized with budgets so healthy that they're going up against our neighborhood schools. So that's something that we do have to become not only aware of, but if we're able to be more efficient by consolidating schools, how can we use some of these resources to better market? So those are the highlights or some of the patterns that, again, I was able to take away. These are somewhat the same, somewhat different from our first public meeting that we had in District 7, but we look forward to seeing all of you. As our superintendent and Ms. Thompson said, this is our final meeting of round 1. September 18th, we will get the recommendations and then begin a second process of not only sharing that information, but hearing your reaction. That's going to be the most important step. So thank you for staying with us tonight. I hope you enjoyed. Let's give our round of applause to all our support staff here at the school and the district, especially for providing the wonderful Jason's Deli meal. Can't go wrong with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garza and Superintendent Aquino. As we prepare to close, I want you to pick up one of these little half sheets. They're on the tables because this is the easiest way for you to stay in touch. The conversation doesn't end with tonight. So you have the QR codes for easy access to the Rightsizing website, to our social media channels, and to our newsletter. So has everybody deposited their passport into the basket with the sunflowers? We have a few little door prizes we're going to call, and you must be present to win. Okay. All right, let's see who we have here. Susan Simpson. Is Susan here? Megan Davis. All right, Megan. Megan's got a fan club. George Marin the Fourth. Sonia Driscoll. Sonia here? Okay, excellent. And last but not least, Valeria Marin. Oh man, this is the table right here. Very good. Well, again, thank you so much for spending this time with us this evening. You're here because you care about your children, our children, and you care about the district, and we really appreciate it. So thank you for your input. Thank you for your time. We'll see you in the next round, and have a good evening.